Hey folks, this is Don with Piano Smasher Studios, and today we're going to do something a little different than usual. Now, instead of taking a look at one game in particular, we're going to look at a bunch of different games, and basically today we're going to look at my X-Men game collection. Now, since I've started reading comics and collecting them from a young age, I've taken up collecting the movies, the games, toys, and other memorabilia that come with all the great stories that I've grown up reading. One of my favorite superhero teams of all time has to be the X-Men. They're badass. They've got awesome characters and storylines. Everything about them is awesome. Now, there have been a lot of X-Men video games throughout the years, and my collection doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of all of them. But let's start off by taking a look at the ones that I do have, and we're going to go through them by the release date, just to keep things a little bit simple. So let's start off with Spider-Man and the X-Men Arcade's Revenge. I remember reading comics when I was a little kid and seeing ads for this game on the pages. I got excited just reading about the ads. A game with Spider-Man and the X-Men? This game had to be awesome. Now, this game hit North America in 1992. It got to Japan in 1993, but it didn't even get to the Genesis until 1994. Now, I've got the Super Nintendo version, so let's pop this in and see what it's all about. So you start off playing as Spider-Man. After you beat his first level, though, you can select X-Men characters like Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, and Gambit, and then you can play through their own levels. Now, what has happened is Arcade has kidnapped the X-Men, and it's up to Spider-Man to rescue them. Except, in turn, he gets captured, and basically, you just have to fight your way out of Arcade's murder world. Now, as you go through Spider-Man's first level, you have to collect these farting little beacons that lead you to the X-Men, but you'll have to dodge attacks directed at you by some robots, and once you beat this level, that's when the game really starts up. Now, each level is full of its own shit snares. Now, while they are a little tricky, they are suited to their own character skill sets. Sometimes it does feel as though the characters are depicted a little weaker than they are in the comics. Like in some instances, Wolverine should be able to take way more damage than what he takes in this game. Or Spider-Man's wall crawling ability is limited to only steel beams and not really any other surface. Now, the trickiest level I find is Storm's level, like this one, where she's fighting clams and pearls. I just don't get it. Now, all in all, it really isn't that bad. It's fun to play through, and if you have the time and patience, it can be a pretty good game. Sometimes it can be frustrating to get through one level, though. The Gambit and Storm levels are the hardest I find, and they can be enjoyable, but they are pretty tricky. Now, for a 1992 X-Men game that was published by LJN to be decent, that's saying a lot, especially since LJN has put out a number of other X-Men games that have kind of shit the bed. So, next up, we've got X-Men Wolverine Rage for Game Boy Color, released in 2001. This wasn't just another installment in the X-Men video game saga, but also another installment in the Wolverine spin-off series of games. Ever since people have been slapping on X-Men stickers to game cartridges, they've been doing the same thing for a lot of Wolverine games. Wolverine is possibly the most popular of all the X-Men characters, and he has a series of games that rivals the X-Men games. So, let's pop this in, and let's take a look at X-Men Wolverine's Rage. Now, X-Men Wolverine's Rage isn't the first and certainly isn't the last in a long line of Wolverine games. Wolverine's Rage is a simple side-scroller that does pretty well in delivering an interesting and fun way to play as our favorite X-Man. The story goes like this. Lady Deathstrike has found a way to melt Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, and he has to stop her before she can follow through with her plans. The attacks are simple, just swipe and cut at your opponents. There's no real block attack, but some simple ducking and jumping allows you some safety from the attacks. The attack cycle looks pretty fluid, and to be honest, the only strange thing I can really think of is the coloring for Wolverine. I know they're doing his classic yellow costume, but his claws look like bananas, and some of the parts that should be blue are just this kind of brownish orange, but still, it's not so bad. So, really, it's a decent game for its time, and if you find it for cheap, I'd say buy it. It's not that bad, and for Game Boy Color, you can't go wrong. So that was one more down, and we've got a few more to go. Next on the chopping block, we have X-Men Next Dimension for PS2. Now, this was my first introduction to a Marvel one-on-one fighter, and I had never really played, Marvel vs. Capcom growing up. But I bought this thinking that, you know what, maybe it'll be like it. Maybe it'll be the closest I was going to get to ever getting Marvel vs. Capcom. So I got it, and to be honest, I never really cared for this game, but maybe that's just because I wasn't very good at it. So let's pop it in and see what it's all about. Alright, this is X-Men Next Dimension. Let's just screw the cutscene, skip that. Let's just jump right into the game. Now, in a game like this, control is very important to me. I want to be able to land hits on my opponents, otherwise, what's the point? And this game has a pretty poor control scheme at best. More often than not, my attacks usually never hit. Like, holy shit, did you just see that? Let's play that again in slow motion here. I'm Forge on the left, and I'm shooting at Mystique. She is level with the barrel of my gun, and I'm blasting her in the face with what looks like dehydrated Slimers, but still. Anyways, we're going to fight Nightcrawler this round. Let's just see how that goes. Should be better than last time. What? Alright. What the? Oh my god! So, let's just play this back in slow motion here. As we can see, Nightcrawler gives me a little nudge, and it looks like the car blew up before I hit it, maybe. I don't know, but what the hell is that? I just got pushed into a car and it exploded. That was a little weird, but it's not as bad as I remember, and at least the game gives you quite a few colorful characters to actually pick from. Now, other than some shady controls and mediocre graphics, it isn't as bad as I remember. The loading screens that I edited out were frustratingly long, but this was still an early PS2 game, so if you're looking to smash some of your favorite X-Men characters, then look no further than X-Men Next Dimension. Alright, so we got all that other stuff out of the way, got all the Game Boy games out of the way, the other stuff, and it's all uphill from here. So the next game we're going to look at is one of my favorite X-Men games, X2 Wolverine Revenge. Now, the thing that I only really noticed lately when I was playing this for this review was they call it X2, and they use Hugh Jackman's likeness on this, and they use the X2 picture from the movie. And, I mean, Hugh Jackman's all over it, but it doesn't have anything to do with the X-Men movie, or the whole X-Men movie universe. It is based within the comics, and there are really no other references to the movie other than the box art. That's not really a big deal, it's just I never really noticed until now. And, yeah, it's just a sweet game. Now, not only does this star one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, but it finally portrays Wolverine as it should. It utilizes a variety of his skills like stealth, his animal senses, his heightened senses, his fighting skills and his takedowns. A lot of things that I still see in games, maybe not other people, but I still see it in games like the Arkham series, and there's small things here and there. I'm not saying that Rocksteady took any notes from this game, but it's just something that I like to think carries on through games. But whatever. So let's check this out, see what it's all about. So this is X2 Wolverine's Revenge title screen. Before we get started here, I just want to jump over to the bonus area and check out the costume gallery, just something we can check out before we start. Now, every good superhero game has a costume gallery where you can pick different skins for your character. Here we have the new X-Men look from the new X-Men comic series. We have his classic yellow and blue. Can't have this game without that. We also have the X2 costume. So I guess I lied. I guess this is the actual real reference to the movie, I suppose. That's about it. This is a costume variant designed by Alex Ross. Never really used, I guess. And this is his classic orange and tan costume, which I personally favor. He also has his ultimate X-Men look, just that old t-shirt with stripes. I didn't unlock the other one, but I'm going to go with the yellow version. So X2 Wolverine's Revenge throws you into a story where Wolverine has only days to live due to a virus that he has become ill with, a virus created by Weapon X. On his journey for survival, he is pitted against some of his classic villains like Sabretooth, Juggernaut, Magneto, Wendigo, and even Lady Deathstrike. Now, combat can be performed in different ways. You can retract your claws and fight with your fists, or pull out your claws and tear shit up. Obviously, retracting your claws does less damage, but it has the added perk of allowing you to use your healing ability, something you can't do while you have your claws out. You can even use your animal senses, and you'll be able to track enemies by detecting their body heat and smell. This becomes useful especially when approaching certain enemies or minefields. Stealth is another form of combat and allows you to strike opponents when the word strike appears at the bottom of the screen. Now, in some situations, if you aren't able to sneak up on your enemies, stun them in combat until you can finish them off with a strike takedown. Now, I'm feeling pretty generous, and to be honest, I haven't really ever saved this guy before, so I guess I'll try and do it this time. I usually just let them die because they always try and shoot me anyway, so why should I help them? But I'm a superhero, so I guess I should help him. What's he doing here anyways? What? What? Shit. Damn. Oh, crap. So that's X2 Wolverine's Revenge for PS2. Now, it's an awesome game, and it really does give Wolverine fans what they've waited so long for. It's a game about Wolverine, and it kicks ass. It utilizes some of his key skill sets, and really delivers a great game. The attacks are awesome, the controls are great. Sometimes the hit detection's a little dodgy, but that's not a major complaint. Now, it's a pretty fun game, and it's one of my favorite X-Men games, and one of my favorite Wolverine games. So that just about wraps that up for this video. We have more X-Men games to go through, so stay tuned for part 2. And as always, thanks for watching.